Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my June reading wrap-up. I can't believe it's the end of the month already, but I have about 16 or so books here. We have plenty of thrillers and cozy mysteries, so we're just gonna hop into the first book because there's a lot to get through. So this month was pretty messy. I will say overall I had more disappointments than knockouts, but I did have one cozy mystery in particular that I just adored, and that is On Spine of Death by Tamara. So this is part of the By the Books mystery series. It features Tess as our main character, and she is a thriller writer, and she has a teenage daughter, and they've moved out into like the middle of nowhere into her grandfather's old cabin here. And they are in the state of Washington. This is their new home, and in this book she is renovating her grandfather's old hardware store and making it into a bookstore, which I love because now we'll have a writer and bookshop owning cozy mystery sleuth, which is amazing. But while they're doing the renovations on the store, they actually find skeletal remains of, like dead bodies on the premises of the shop. So of course the renovations get shut down, an investigation is started, and the town is starting to look at her like, was your grandfather, a serial killer or something? So she's getting a lot of side eyes, and she starts to dig into it, and I cannot express to you how much I love Tess as a character. She has such spunk. The writing style for this is really fun. It's kind of chaotic. It's very fast paced. It's funny. It just feels very relatable and natural. Her daughter is a hoot. I love her. She is a really fabulous character. They have a great relationship, and just everything about this series has been really good. The mysteries are solid. The writing style is excellent. That's probably my favorite part. It's just the writing style is amazing. The setting's great. I mean, there's just nothing to not like about it. The first book in the series I gave 5 stars. This one I also give 5 stars. It's a really fun read. I really flew through it. Even though it's 400 pages, I flew through it. The other thing this author is really good at is she will just string you along where you think you know who did it, and you're just completely out of left field. Like, you're not even close. Like, the first book, she strung me along so well. I love the characters. I cannot wait to read book 3 because there's currently 3 books out in this series, so I want to get my hands on book 3. And yeah, I would highly recommend this series if you like a bookish cozy mystery. If you're someone who's read Finlay Donovan and you liked it, this is a little bit cozier. It doesn't have as much non-cozy elements as like the Finlay Donovan series does, but it reminds me a lot of it's in the same vein because the main character is a writer, she's a mother, she's very funny, she's very like relatable. The writing style is also very like punchy and kind of chaotic as well, like Finlay Donovan, so I think if you like Finlay Donovan you might also like this series as well. A book that really surprised me pleasantly this month was The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. This is described as like a suspenseful gothic story, so it is a supernatural suspense. It is very gothic in style. It's definitely thrilling, but it is definitely more on the suspense side of things. And basically our main character in this is Beatrice, and she has recently married a very wealthy man who she doesn't know much about, but she wants to get out of poverty and out of her situation. So she marries very well, and she moves into his home here, which is Hacienda San Isidro, and it's not the sanctuary she imagined. There's a lot of creepy things happening. Her husband's sister, who lives on like the property, won't even stay in the house overnight because she seems to be afraid of the place. There's also a lot of rumors going around her husband because his first wife died, and there's rumors that maybe he had something to do with it. This is described as Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca, and I would say that's a good description. I love Rebecca, so if you're comparing a book to Rebecca, it needs to hold up, and this held up. It was just as suspenseful. I was just on the edge of my seat. I'm not big on supernatural, so I was a little bit worried about that going in, but this scared me to death, and in a good way. It was very thrilling. It was super psychological. It was horrifying. It's so creepy. It was such a good story. It was such a good character study, looking at people. Like, everyone really had an interesting backstory and their own motives and their own personalities. It was really well done. I really, really could not recommend this enough. If you're looking for something to scare you, don't read this before bed. You could read this before bed for extra scariness, but this was terrifying. Like, this was truly one of the scariest books I've ever read, but it was done so well. I love Beatrice. I was really rooting for her the entire time. I was like, come on, I'm rooting for you. And the ending, if you know, you know, but the ending just kind of broke my heart a little bit. It really broke my heart. Okay, so let's get into some that did not go so well. This one was 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. I read this for a vlog. I'll link the vlog above because I covered a couple of the books that we'll be talking about in that vlog, but I think this is like a 2.5 at best. It wasn't great. Like, I enjoyed the writing style. I thought the author did a beautiful job at describing everything, and just, I loved her writing style. I found it very easy to read. The basic premise for this is that 56 days ago, a couple moved in together. They just started dating, they just met, and they're both new to the city of Dublin, and they decide to move in together because like lockdowns and stuff start to happen, you know, a couple years ago, and they don't want to be alone. They're afraid of being alone. So they move in together despite not knowing each other very well, and of course, it's a thriller. They each have their own secrets, and it's creepy. The setup is great. The plot idea is great. The writing style is great, but I called the ending so early, and then when the ending happened, it felt very rushed. You're also bouncing between Sierra and Oliver's perspective. They're the two people in the couple, and then you're also going into the future where you know that there has been a body discovered in the apartment that those two were staying in 56 days later. So you know, you have, you know, the thrill element. You're like trying to figure out, you know, who's the body, like why is there a body there, like, you know, what happened. So it's set up really well, but just the payoff was not there. The ending felt very rushed to me, and because you're bouncing from multiple perspectives, it felt like every time the suspense would really build up, we would jump to someone else's perspective and it would just kill the suspense. And sometimes I have authors who do that, and I'm reading it and they do it really well, where you just have to keep reading because you want to get back to the other person's perspective, but you're enjoying the person whose perspective you're now reading. But this one, the suspense just like ended. Like it would just shoot it down. I would have enjoyed this more, I think, if it was written from one perspective for the past. So if it was just written from one, either Oliver or Sierra's point of view, and then if you knew about the detective in the future finding the body. I think I would have enjoyed it more. I also mentioned in the vlog, I feel like this would have been better as a mystery novel instead of trying to make it a thriller. I feel like that could have also helped if they kind of gone more of like a mystery novel route. But I wasn't that impressed. I really wanted to be because I loved the premise, but I didn't love the plot, like in just the pacing. I wasn't having a great time with it. On another note, we have Toured to Death by H.Y. Conrad. I did have this book on my physical TBR, but I switched it out at a free little library, so I'll put a picture on screen. I DNF'd this. I only got like a third of the way or so into the book. Basic premise is really cool. You basically have Amy, she runs a travel agency, and she's taking this group on like a murder mystery excursion. So they're basically going throughout Monte Carlo in different places, and they're solving like a murder mystery, like a fictional one. They've hired a writer and everything to make up the story, like a really elaborate story, and like the different people in the group are playing different characters and stuff. It's really a great concept, but I didn't care about the characters at all. I just didn't connect with them. I was bored. I felt like I was a third of the way into the book and not much had really happened. A lot of the characters were getting on my nerves. I just wasn't having a good time, so I ended up DNFing it. I don't know, I loved the premise too and the cover and everything, but I just wasn't having a great time with it. I don't know, I feel like maybe I was just a little extra picky this month because I definitely was kind of vicious with some of these, as you'll see, but just didn't have a good time with it. The characters weren't doing it for me, and I gave up. So that was not so great. A thriller that I did really love, like this is I'm looking at my stack over here, this is my favorite, I think, of the thrillers I read, is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I saw Taya from Taya's Turning Pages. I'll link her channel below. Recommend this, and she was so right. This was fabulous. This was such a terrifying thriller. The pacing was great. The characters, everything was checked off in my boxes for this. We have our main character, let's see, Naomi, and we also are following her and then her two best friends from her youth, Cassidy and Olivia. So when they were 11 years old, they were out in the woods playing, and Naomi gets like separated from the other two girls, and she ends up getting attacked, like really viciously attacked, and the other two girls are witnesses to the attack, and they end up with their witness accounts putting a man behind bars. Yeah, it says the girls' testimony put away a serial killer wanted for murdering 6 women. They were heroes and they were liars. So it's now 22 years into the future, so they're in their 30s, and Naomi has come back to her hometown, and she is starting to kind of nose around and ask questions and really look at that night more critically, and she starts to suspect they put away the wrong person. this was mind-bogglingly good. Every time I thought I called it, I got like rug pulled out from underneath me. It was such a good read. It was so thrilling, so fast-paced. I could not put it down. It was excellent. I really, really enjoyed this. I would recommend it. It was a really good summer thriller because a lot of it took place out in the woods, and it just felt like a great choice for a summer thriller, and I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, Alice Feeney, who's another author I really love, praises it here on the front, so that was probably a good indicator I might like this, but yeah, hands down, this is definitely one of the best thrillers I've read this month, or even in the last few months. I've really been it's been pretty hit or miss, I would say. So this one was a really solid hit for me. Now this was a new cozy mystery series to me. This is On Borrowed Crime by Kate Young, a Jane Doe book club mystery. And I'm gonna say this was good overall. We have our main character, Lila Moody, and she works as a receptionist at her uncle's like private investigator firm, so she has like a little bit of an inside look at the industry. But basically she also has this book club, the Jane Doe book club, and they read mysteries there in the book club, and they also will discuss like Jane Doe cases. They never really suspect that they're going to solve one, though. It's just kind of, you know, they share this common interest. So they're discussing this, and one day, one of the members of the book club is actually found murdered in a very scary, like, way. They're actually found inside of a suitcase and delivered to Lila's door. So really creepy, really scary, and the ladies start to look into it, and they suspect that their friend was murdered because she knew too much about one of the Jane Doe cases that they've looked at. So Lila starts to get on the case. This takes place in Georgia. It's very southern, it's very fun, it's very charming. I'd say like a 3.5. This was good. I want to read the next book in the series. It wasn't amazing. My biggest critique was that some of the dialogue felt a little over the top. Like at times it would feel very natural, it would feel great, but then other conversations it would just go very dramatic or very stiff. Like it just didn't feel like natural, like people would actually speak that way to each other. That's my biggest critique, but otherwise I thought the mystery was well executed. I liked Lila as a character. I liked her friends. I liked the concept of this mystery. I thought the setting was really charming. So I'm looking forward to the next book in the series. It wasn't a standout cozy mystery, like, you know, I'm going to look back on this and think this was a top mystery for the year, but it was definitely a solid read that I would recommend if you like the premise. And I'm looking forward to book 2. I actually have it on hold at my library right now. So this next one might be a little controversial because I know a lot of people on YouTube have been really loving this, and I mentioned this in one of my other videos, and I know some of you also said you really loved it, but I could not get into this. I ended up DNFing this book, and that is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I know this thriller is everywhere, and I can see why. The premise is really amazing. Basically, we have a woman, she's in a cabin, she's like house sitting for a friend, she's out in the middle of nowhere, and she reads this book by an author, and she leaves a 1-star review of the book because she really hated it. Like, she leaves a pretty long comment going in depth about why she didn't like the book. She left a 1-star review, and instead of kind of honoring that unspoken rule about, you know, an author not reaching out to tell someone off because they left a review, you know, 'cause everyone can have their own opinion of a book, of course, and I know it's ironic I'm giving this a 1-star, like I DNF'd it in the topic of this book. That makes me nervous, right? But the author reaches out to her, and he starts to kind of antagonize her and asks her to take the review down, and she refuses. She stands her ground, and then all these weird things start to happen, and she's in this remote place, like someone shows up at her door. All these weird things start to happen, and I just didn't care for the main character. I was really having a hard time like getting behind her character. It was hinting at some different themes, like a lot of grief that she was going through and some different things I would have liked to read more about. And a lot of you said it got better in the second half, and that's where a lot of the twists were, but I felt like I was having to drag myself through this. I really didn't enjoy it. I just didn't love the main character. Something about the writing style felt really off to me and kind of stiff, and I didn't like it. I don't know what else to say other than I just didn't care for it. I didn't get into it. For me, a thriller needs to kind of pull me in quickly. That's, you know, it's a thriller. Like, I really want to feel that urgency, that thrill, that adrenaline right off the bat, and this just didn't do it for me. And I wish it did. I liked the premise, but I didn't care for the main character, and I just didn't really get into the plot line. I felt like there was a lot of convoluted ends that were being thrown around, and maybe they were wrapped up in some amazing way. That's totally possible, but I just wasn't going to give this book the time to actually get there because I wasn't enjoying it that much already. So that's kind of where I ended with this one. Fun, cozy mystery that never disappoints for the series is Death of a Trophy Wife by Laura Levine. This is part of the Jane Austen mystery series. Jane Austen is a freelance writer, and she takes all these odd jobs on to support herself, so she gets into lots of shenanigans. Laura Levine is like a comedy writer, so she has the most comedic writing style. The mysteries are always fun, but I read her for the comedy, the self-deprecating humor, the punchiness, the just very funny, like, internal dialogue that Jane has with herself. Her cat's name is Prozac, and her cat is the funniest cat or animal in any cozy mystery series I've ever read. I love that cat. Her parents also email her these hilarious emails, and they're like each emailing their point of view for these funny situations, and it's just hysterical. Like, actually, so this is a book I will actually laugh out loud at. So with this particular one, as the title suggests, there's a death of a trophy wife, so Jane starts to write for this trophy wife, Bunny's husband, who owns like a big mattress company, and she gets the job. She starts to write like slogans and stuff for them, and then his wife ends up dying under mysterious circumstances, and her friend Lance, who lives next door to her and was the one who introduced her to the trophy wife because he's a shoes like salesman, so she was a customer of his. He gets accused of the murder, so Jane starts to dig into it and try to solve the mystery, basically. If you're looking for like here, Joanne Fluke on the front says outrageously funny. That's a great way to describe this. These are just hilarious, self-deprecating, really funny. I mean, the author makes fun of just everyone and anyone, and including the character herself, so it's just across the board really funny, really punchy. This is a great, like, light-hearted cozy mystery series. You can't go wrong with it. I've enjoyed every one I've read in this series so far. So a thriller author that's really doing a good job for me is Sandie Jones. I read The First Mistake this month. Previously I'd read The Other Woman, and a lot of you said that this was a really good book that she's also come out with, so I picked this up. Wow, okay, this book was insane, so crazy, so fast-paced. It's under 300 pages, so it's really quick, but basically you have a couple main characters. You have Alice, she is the wife, she's got a second husband she's married to, a successful business, 2 children, a beautiful house, you know, she's got it all. Then her husband, and then her best friend, Beth. And this is a psychological domestic thriller. This is terrifying. So you have Alice, you have Beth, and you have her husband, Nathan, and it's just scary. So Alice suspects that Nathan might be cheating on her. He starts to act weird. She finds some like weird clues and things. So she confides in her best friend Beth, but then Beth is giving her these vibes like she might be hiding some things from her. So she starts to wonder, has her trust been misplaced all along? This is a really great psychological domestic thriller. I actually had moments in this book where like I was just like gape mouthed. Like I had my mouth open. I was just like, because I was shocked by some aspects of this. Some twists of this actually just blew my mind. I absolutely recommend this. It was fantastic. I don't want to give anything away, so I'm going to stop there, but I absolutely recommend this if you're looking for a psychological domestic thriller. This was fast-paced, really easy to get into immediately, like I was pulled in, and I can't wait to read more from Sandie Jones because so far, 2 out of 2 really enjoyable reads from her so far. Soul of a Killer by Abby Collette. This is book 2 in the Books and Biscuits mystery series. I talked about this in my vlog, so I'll keep this brief. I gave this like a 3.5 stars, like maybe 3 stars. I liked book 1 better. I feel like the plot in book 1 was executed better. I feel like the clues and everything were more interesting, and like the build up to the reveal at the end was more interesting. This one I felt like was pretty easy to call. I did like the reveal. I thought the reveal was done well. I love the characters, but I just wasn't as engaged with this as I was with book 1. I would still recommend it. I had a really good time with this. Kobe and Keaton are fraternal twins. They've reunited as adults, and they've opened a bookstore and like cafe. So Keaton sets up the book side of things, and Kobe does the cooking. He does a lot of like southern cooking. It's always mouth-watering. The descriptions are excellent. And in this case, they're actually at a church, and Mama Zola, who is Kobe's foster mother because the two were separated at birth, Mama Zola is bringing a dish to a potluck at the church, and somebody actually dies, and she is a suspect along with Pete, who is one of their employees and Mama Zola's friend. So they get involved in the case immediately to clear their name. I liked this, but I just didn't love it. I thought the plot was okay. I thought it was good. Like the reveal itself was good, but the plot was just kind of so-so. But again, the characters really make up for a lot of that because I love them so much. They're such heartwarming characters. The relationship between the two twins is amazing. It's really heartwarming. It's really fun to see them get to learn about each other more because they were separated as children, so they don't know each other as well as two siblings who grew up together would, and I like that aspect. I really love Mama Zola. I think she's such a fun character, such a heartwarming character. She's somebody like everyone needs a Mama Zola in their life is how I feel after reading this. All in all, I still had a good time with this. It just wasn't my favorite from the series. So 3.5 stars. It was still above average. It was still good. It just wasn't my favorite from the series, unfortunately. Next, I read The Only Survivors by Meg and Miranda. This is another thriller that's going around. It was like a book of the month release, and it was pretty good. I don't know what it was this month, guys. I don't know. I was just not having the best time. I don't know if I'm being really picky or something, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I did read it over the course of 2 days. Like, there was definitely a good page-turning element. I wanted to know what was happening next. The premise for this one is we have our main character. We're following around Cassidy, and she and 9 other students are survivors during they're in high school, and there's this horrible accident with 2 school buses that go into the river, and she and 8 other classmates are the only survivors. And so ever since that accident, they have returned to this beautiful beachfront property for a week each year during that anniversary to kind of just come together and to commemorate the awful tragedy that they experienced, because everyone else, including the teachers, did not make it. But there's also this element where you know that the characters are also meeting, not because they're great friends or they want to support each other, but they also want to hold each other accountable for something. So there's questions surrounding the accident. What really happened? What did these 9 individuals do that others maybe weren't willing to do to survive? So there's that element. It really puts into perspective, what would you be willing to do to survive an accident over somebody else? Which is in itself a really scary thing to think about, and I liked how it kind of pushed you mentally to really think about that. I think the setup for this was done well. I liked the characters. I just don't think it was exceptional in anything. I 3.5 stars. Again, it was good. It was a fun read. I enjoyed it, but I don't think I'm gonna look back on this and be like, wow, that was just the most mind-blowing thriller. Not like The First Mistake or The Hacienda or His and Hers by Alice Feeney is one of my favorites. Those ones really just have stuck with me. This one is one I enjoyed. I would recommend it. I think it's a good summer thriller. It's really fun, especially with the beachfront property, but it's definitely, I don't know how I feel about the ending. If you've read this, I would love to know your thoughts on the ending and the reveal, because I don't know. Up until that point, I was sold on this being at least a 4-star, but the reveal itself, I was kind of I don't know how I feel about it. So that, the ending, I just don't know how I feel about it, and that's kind of what's had me hung up over the rating for this book. But it was still really fun. It definitely makes you think. Let's see, a couple of mysteries. I read No Good Tea Goes Unpunished by Bree Baker, a seaside cafe mystery. This was a solid read, a 3.5-star read. This is a great summer cozy mystery series in general because it is on the beach with our main character who has an iced tea shop, and Everly Swan is just a really fun character, very relatable. She's very loyal to her friends, and in this one she's catering a wedding for one of her friends, and the groom is found dead right after the wedding takes place, which is just horrifying. It's really emotional to see her comfort her friend throughout this book. I liked learning more about some of our surrounding characters in this book that were present in book 1. I really enjoyed seeing them develop. I liked learning more about her aunts. I liked learning more about her friend who runs the bookshop. I would say the mystery itself was pretty good. It was decent. Everly definitely gets herself into trouble. She's being watched a lot throughout this book, and it's just, a really cozy, really charming book. Definitely a fun summer read, so if you're looking for a summer cozy mystery series, this is a good one to check out. I also read, and I'm very proud of myself because I've been working on short stories this year as kind of a goal, and that is The Illustrated Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the 12 best Sherlock Holmes short stories according to the author himself, which is really cool. And the book is illustrated. It's just fabulous illustrations, so incredibly beautiful. I love this book. The illustrations really brought the stories to life, and Sherlock Holmes is hilarious. I never realized this, but I actually read one of these short stories out loud to my husband while we were on a drive, and we cracked up at several points because he was so witty and dismissive in this really funny way to Watson at points, and it was just really funny. I never really think of Sherlock Holmes as a funny man, but he's very witty, actually, and if you read it out loud or you really slow down when you're reading his dialogue, it really comes through, which I enjoyed. But I just love this. These short stories were great. I think some of my favorites, I loved The Red-Headed League. A Scandal in Bohemia was really cool because that was my first Sherlock Holmes story with Irene Adler in it, so I really enjoyed her introduction there. I also really liked the Reigate Squire. I thought that one was really good. So this was just a really enjoyable read. I got this for like $10 at Barnes & Noble. I'll have the links for all these down below, but if you're looking for a nice gift for someone who's like a mystery lover, whether that's yourself or someone in your life, this is a really beautiful book. Gorgeous, I mean, just gorgeous cover. I did the mid-year freakout challenge this month, and this was my pick for the most beautiful book that I've received or bought this year. It's stunning. It's beautiful. Like, I know I'm going to come back and reread these just for the illustrations alone and the stories. They're so, like, look at this. Just beautiful. It makes you really feel like you're part of the story to have the, like, kind of aged paper here and, like, to see, like, the clues and the like, sites and everything. It really is beautiful. So this was definitely a treat. This was 5 stars. It was Sherlock Holmes. It was excellent. So many great stories in this, and the illustrations just took it over the edge for me. Okay, so this one is The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. Now, I talked about this in the vlog. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but I want to bump it up. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, this is a 4-star read for me. This one, I love the little blurb. It says, "What happens when love pushes you to the edge?" So this is a domestic psychological thriller. You have a couple with some children. They've recently moved into this house, and it's like near these cliffs, and this is unfortunately like a popular area for people to jump to take their own lives. And the husband tries to always talk the people away from the cliff whenever he sees someone debating jumping. And one night he goes out there and he's unable to convince the person to not jump, and they end up jumping, and he's just devastated. And this is the first time he's failed. He's had a really good success rate up until this point, but later on the wife discovers that her husband knew the person who jumped, and he completely didn't disclose this to the police, didn't tell her, which is really odd. Like, you know, why would you keep that? So she starts to really dig into it and ask questions and look into their past, and the more I think about it, the more this is like a 4 stars for me. I really enjoyed this. I thought, see, our main character is Gabe and Pippa. I thought this book handled some really sensitive topics very well, very thoughtfully, while still showing the reality of certain hardships and different really difficult struggles and things. I thought the writing was really good. I thought the pacing was great. I thought the conclusion for this, it got me really hard. Like, it just absolutely punched me in the gut. It was a really hard-hitting ending for me, and I just really enjoyed this book. So I would definitely recommend it if you like the premise, if you like psychological thrillers. This was a really solid one, and perfect for summer because, just again with the ocean, we have a lot of ocean themed books this month. Another one I read was Dirty Laundry by Disha Bose. I didn't love this one. It was like 3 stars at best. The premise for this one is you basically have a couple of different moms in the suburbs. You have like the one who seems to be perfect. You know, she's like the influencer. She's got the perfect house. She's got the perfect kids. And you know from the start that she will end up dead. Like, that's in the synopsis. No spoilers there. But you're going back in time before the incident, and you're reading from her perspective and 2 other mothers, their perspective, and kind of trying to put together who wants her dead. And pretty much everyone could want her dead. It's like one of those stories where most people are very unlikable in this book. I did really like Mishti. I thought she was a great character. She was my favorite to read about. But basically every character in this was very unlikable. It kind of reminds me of Lucy Foley because I tend to dislike almost every character in her books, but she still puts together a really great plot, so it's entertaining. Unfortunately, this one lacked in plot. I felt like this was more of a character study and like drama around suburban life and like moms, which is fine, but I was signing up for like a thriller. That's kind of what I was looking for. So you're going back in time, you're reading from their perspectives, you're getting to learn about them, and I thought this was going to be some great build up to the plot and like, you know, wow, I can't believe this is how it happened. And it was just such a quick ending. It was so just like swept under the rug. It was really fast. I thought it was pretty easy to call. I was kind of like, that's it. It wasn't great. again, I really liked the writing style. I really enjoyed how the author described things, the characters, how you got inside the characters' heads, but I just didn't, the plot didn't do much for me. I felt like it was kind of an afterthought. It seemed really rushed at the end, and I just didn't really enjoy it that much. I would consider reading something else from her in the future because I did really like her writing style, but this plot definitely didn't do it for me. And then last but not least, we have The Chateau by Jacylyn Goldis. This was one of my most anticipated thriller releases for this year, and I really liked it. This was probably 3.5 to 4 stars, a solid read. Basically, we have a bunch of girls who are going back to this beautiful chateau in the French countryside. And you kind of have the central character, Darcy, who is Lady Seraphine's granddaughter, and she's the one who owns the estate. And when they were younger, like teens, young adults, they would go for these weekend trips to visit the old lady and just spend time together in the French countryside. So it's a group of 4 girls, including Darcy. And they've kind of drifted over the years, but all of a sudden, like 2 decades later, I think they're in their 40s, they get invitations to come back to the chateau for like a week. And they're all kind of confused about this. They don't know what the sudden invitation is for. Like, they're kind of like, okay, is there like a hidden purpose behind this? Well, before Lady Seraphine, who invited them all, can answer any questions, she is found dead in the chateau. There's also an Instagram account that threatens to out the different girls' secrets, because each of them has a secret connected to the chateau, and the Instagram account starts to harass them. Now, I know some people I've seen on YouTube really didn't like this because it's definitely more of a slow burn. It's definitely more suspenseful, like you have to really wait for more of a payoff, but I enjoyed the characters and the writing and the pacing enough to continue with it. So I didn't really mind that myself. The ending was a really big reveal in my opinion. It was definitely very like a ripple effect where you had like the initial reveal and it just went whoosh, like everything just kind of exploded in a good way to really learn a lot at once, and I enjoyed that personally. I liked the characters. The only part that kind of disappointed me was the Instagram account aspect. I found that to be kind of underwhelming. I won't say much more, but it just wasn't, I thought it would play like a bigger part, and it was just kind of there. Like, I don't know, it didn't do a whole lot for me, but the rest of the plot for this was really hard hitting. It went in directions I definitely didn't see coming. I didn't expect from kind of a twisty, fun thriller. So it's definitely a hard-hitting, more slow burn kind of thriller, but I found the payoff to be worth it. I thought the characters were all very interesting. I liked reading about them. They all had distinctly different lives, and it was interesting to see them come together after all these years to kind of mend different bonds that had been broken, and it was a really good read. I really did enjoy this, so I'm gonna say 4 stars. So that is my reading wrap up. I feel like that was all over the place. We really had just some big misses this month, but we had overall some pretty good hits too. So I'd love to hear down below, have you read any of these books? What were your thoughts on them? And what else did you read this month? What would you recommend? I always love to hear your opinions, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I do post new book content every week on this channel, especially in the mystery and thriller genre. So if you like those, I know you'll like the channel, so hit subscribe and let me know what you've been reading, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!